I don't have much time, Liberty frantically said to her caller as she ran, pushing through the sharp bushes and tripping over logs. I need an extraction. Get me out of here, please. Do you have the assets? The voice came through the caller. No, she said apologetically. The ACG intervened. We have all three of the dogs. A grimace was forced from her breath as low as a branch smacked against her, pelting her fur with leaves. So you lost all of them. Yes, I know, Liberty heaved, jumping behind a tree and looking back. I know I lost them. I'm sorry. But I'm an asset too, right? Come and get me. Send a helicopter. Send anything, please. Panic filled her voice, for a long duration of silence came from the other end. Please, they're after me. Liberty, the voice began. I don't think we can do that. What? No! Alarm flared through the dachshund as she crouched low under a bush in desperate attempt to hide. You can't do that to me. You know Dutch isn't happy with you, and we have other dogs here, the ones that can actually do their job properly, the voice said coldly. What about the infection in the basement? Did you get a sample? Liberty winced, already knowing the answer. I had someone set up, and Van Zuma set off the explosion, incinerating the entire basement and all the things I had with it. It was his fault. Goodbye, Liberty. The dachshund nearly cried out. What? Ryder, no! Wait! You can't just leave me out here! When cold, rejecting silence only met her, Liberty knew, with a sinking heart, that she had been abandoned. With a shaky breath, she prayed over it for all to be a terrible dream. But every time she opened her eyes, and the world around her just became even clearer, panic filled her heart, and she cursed herself for ever trusting the Archline Foundation. She took a step back when she was suddenly heard Chase's voice. Liberty! Whipping around in fear, she locked her eyes with the German Shepherd racing over to the forest floor. Liberty! Chase panted, coming up to a stop in the pile of leaves. Enough with the games. You need to come with me. With them, he said, referring to the ACG. Just stop running. Frozen in her step, Liberty frantically fought over her options. If she went with the ACG, her involvement with the research company would be exposed, leaving her invulnerable to being pinned for every death committed by the claws of the creature. Even if she didn't release Varrock's Miles directly, she'd be thoroughly interrogated for any information possible. Terror rose within her as she imagined herself breaking, completely giving up all the Archline's secrets into the military fraction. Perhaps she would walk free the next day, only for her body to turn up mysteriously dead mere hours later. The Archline had a way of silencing those who talked too much. Gears running in their head, she remembered several contacts she had in Adventure Bay. All she needed to do now was escape. Never! She snapped, baring her teeth. I'm getting out of here. Now leave me alone! Swiftly turning around, Liberty kicked her legs and charged through the forest, kicking up leaves and twigs as she ran. What? Hey! Chase blinked, growling as he sprang into action. On any other day, he would have instantly run her down and caught her. Chase was far the fastest dog in Paw Patrol. Unfortunately, his speed was severely hindered by the burns and damage throughout his body from the explosion. He could still run, but only at a reduced pace that was barely enough to keep up with the dachshund. Burned ears flattened as he grimaced through fighting for the pain. Leave me alone! Liberty shouted again, jumping over a log and running into a clearing. Breathing heavily from the exertion, she turned and sprinted into a denser collection of trees and foliage. There was a cave up ahead, a dark archway of stone under the canopy of moss and grass provided by the entrance of the forest cavern. It was big enough for a person to fit inside, and the pathway within dipped into a corridor that led to another part of the forest. The location itself was a favorite of Rocky's, as he always commented on how it felt like traveling under a mountain. To the other side of the land, the cave alone had nothing particularly notable inside it, save for some oddly shaped rocks and dripping puddles. but its darkness tends to be quite calming to one's mind. Even without thinking, Liberty sprinted headfirst into the cave, disappearing into the darkness. Relentless in his pursuit, Chase followed without hesitation, feeling the cool air wash over him as he crossed inside, paws scratching over the hard floor as he ran. The shepherd was almost blinded by how amazing the air felt on his blistered, patchy skin, almost completely negating the lingering pain of the interior of the cave. Was a perfect balance between warm and cold, soothing his agony to comfort. He almost broke the chase with Liberty to enjoy it, but he quickly snapped himself back into his senses. He could not allow the dachshund to escape. Liberty found herself stumbling several times over jagged rocks, cutting her paws as she scrambled to keep away from the shepherd, frantically relying on some sense of smell and hearing of wave around the darkness. She splashed through a puddle, soaking her underside. As she crossed further in, she emerged into the darkest depths of the corridors, a cold tunnel completely absent of light. Fearful and tripping in the dark, she came to a complete stop with shaky breaths. She wanted to turn around and run, but doing so would put her right into Chase's clutches. She had to make it out, to brave her way through the depths of the cave to the other side. Running what felt like hours, Chase slowly lost his vision at the sight of the drain from the cave. He slowly began to slow his pace upon realizing he was completely and utterly blind, instantly skidding to a halt, canceling of all of his speed in an instant. Chase stood firmly in the darkness, glowing in agitation. He could feel the rocky ground under his paws, along with the gentle splash of the cold dew on his back. Carefully placing one paw in front of the other, he blindly stepped over the rocks, jagged debris, and then drops that he couldn't see the bottom of. Turning his ears in all directions, he listened to the sounds of his paws bouncing off the walls. With each step, each crinkle of leaves, each splash of water, the sounds were all crisp and subtle, confirming that he was still surrounded by walls. If his vision was gone for the time being, Chase would have to rely on all the skills a dog could ever have to use them to their fullest extent. He didn't have his flashlight, he didn't have his pup pack, and he certainly didn't have any of his spy gear. Only he had himself. It was a game, a dance. Liberty and Chase lost in the darkness, playing cat and mouse. Nothing but their ears, noses, and instincts to guide them. Sniffing his nose, Chase absorbed the smells of the cave around him. A metallic sting hit his nostrils, almost making him sneeze in disgust, only to be followed by the cool air. A pungent stench of something foul came after. Likely some animal had died in the cave, a smell he was tragically all too familiar with at this point. His paws paused over the grainy cool surface, and then it took another step forward, and his right foot was suddenly dipped in cold water. Legs carrying him, he focused his nose again and sniffed the air. Instantly, and a certain stench hit him like a train. Fear. It was always notable that animals had the unusual abilities to sense emotions, to seemingly detect when their owners were sad or afraid, even without having to tell them. It wasn't something Chase practiced often. Sure, he had heard of the feat, but he simply shrugged off the ability and focused on other things. He wasn't an expert, but the smell of fear was pungent enough that any dog would detect it right away. Liberty was just terrified, stumbling through the dark and out of her element from the city. Chase keenly picked up on her scent in the way that almost outlined her in front of him. Entering his hunter instincts, Chase lowered his head and moved forward, heading straight for her. Strangely, the cave was growing slightly warmer and increasingly steadily. He could smell smoke leaching from the outside, a origin smell he didn't understand. Shaking his head, he ignored the unwelcome stench and considered after her. It wasn't until he was mere meters away that Liberty finally picked up the danger that was nearby. She snapped into alert. "Just come with me? Why can't you see the answer to all this?" Breaking into a run, the smaller dog trudged through the darkness. "You stay with them? Ferox mouths will kill you all." "You knew it was here," Chase barked, rage seeping into his voice. You knew it was here, and you let it all happen. Hundreds could be dead. Half the patrol is gone. I'm not the one who murdered Sky. Those words severed by any last bits of mercy he could have ever had. Enraged Chase snarled and completely ran her down, honing in on the sounds of footsteps in the darkness. Light only began to gently illuminate the walls around them as they ran next to the exit of the cave. The jagged, rocky interior finally becoming visible again. Liberty saw it too. She quickened her pace, only for confusion to cloud her as she spotted the flickering orange flames that dotted the end of the tunnel. What the? She tried to say, before she was violently tackled from behind. Teeth flashed onto the back of her neck as leaves and twigs went flying, and both dogs careening out of the cave and landed in the grass, abrasively pinned into her back. Liberty flailed helplessly as she tried to escape, panicking as Chase held her firmly. The shepherd didn't even notice that the forest was actively burning around him. You, he tried to form the words. After everything, after the city, after... He fought back to his short time he spent in Adventure City Pound. It was Liberty's help he was able to escape, and when he fully believed that the Dachshund was the perfect gift for the patrol. You fucking traitor, he spat. I should have thrown you to the Varrock's malice. Let me go, she tried to fight him off. We're going to burn alive. Burn? Chase faltered slightly, then finally flicked his gaze up and realized his surroundings. Both of them were completely cornered by the raging inferno that was slowly consuming the forest. The wave of heat finally hit him, and his eyes widened and his gaze rested on the single tree that had exploded into a star of fire, bleeding down the flaming leaves. Adventure Bay was burning. Her captor distracted, Liberty quickly turned to her right, noticing a flaming stick that had fallen from the sky. Instantly seizing her moment, she grabbed the stick and swung it like a blunt weapon, connecting it to Chase's face. The police dog yelped in surprise, staggering backwards as he finally took the fiery splinters from his head. Making a break for it, Liberty jumped up and ran as fast as she could into the burning foliage, and this time Chase wasn't behind her. She ran for as long as she could, dodging falling trees to the best of her abilities. Only after minutes, her legs ached and they were stained with ash. Exhaustion befalling on the smaller dog. Gasping, she huddled under a log, trying to protect herself from the heat and fire. Okay, she breathed. I just need to get back to the city. Paws quivering, she drew further under the log, the sounds of splitting wood and crackling fire clouding her ears, as she concealed herself as much as possible. Believing she had finally found somewhere safe, letting her guard down, she let out a slow breath. The sight was cut off in an instant. A bloody, degloved five-finger claw appeared from above and snatched her by the neck. She screamed in terror as her body was forcefully torn out from under the log, the bones in her arms painfully snapping into pieces. All she could do was scream helplessly as her body was pulled from the ground. Varrock's malice emerged from the darkness like a looming predator, snarling its rows of teeth and flashing dozens of its eyes, a face no longer concealed by the lost skin mask. No! Liberty pleaded for her life as she stared into the face of death, awkwardly flailing her broken arms. Standing on two legs, although squatting under the flaming trees not to burn itself, the creature only hissed in delight as it enjoyed her fearful screams. Even with her own cries, Liberty could faintly hear noises coming from inside the creature's jagged ribcage. There was something inside it, something alive. Wait, you can't! The Dachshund continued to beg. You're not... The creature's maw opened, flashing lines of fangs and tentacles that moved within to impale its prey. Audrey? Liberty had cried a last-ditch attempt. Audrey, that's your name, right? That's who you were, right? That was your name. The claw only tightened around her body. I remember the dog you used to be, the Dachshund pleaded. Your name was Audrey. She cried in pain, as more bones snapped within. You were a beautiful shepherd dog. Don't you... She made eye contact with the creature, as best as she could manage with several of its eyes. Don't you remember me? There was a pause. If Varrock's malice was truly intelligent as the Archline promised, that it could surely understand her? Even with its grip tightened, Liberty prayed with everything she had left that it was a slight old glimmer of Audrey left in the monster. Screeching in seething fury, Varrock's malice gripped Liberty and punched her body into a tree that stood nearby, crushing the dog into its wood. The air was filled with agonizing screaming as the prey was pulled from the tree and flung in the other direction. Her body collided with the set of rocks, violently crushing her ribs as she bounced off into the grass, bloodstains leaving a sharp trace of impact. With anything remaining strength left in her, Liberty tried to reach a paw out to crawl away, springing into the air. Varrock's malice soared down and smashed its leg right into her back, destroying her spine and crushing her inner organs. With its prey trapped, the creature roared as it clamped both hands into Liberty's body, lifting her upwards forlornly. The smaller dog was screaming, howling into the air as she felt her body being pulled into directions, the skin beginning to tear, her muscles and bones shredding in half as Varrock's malice strength overpowered her frame. Blood splashed across the trees as the dachshund was completely torn in half, intestine and gore splattering on the ground. Bits of bone and organ spilled out of her halves, aimlessly falling into the grass like dropped meat. Varrock's malice held both hands of the animal with a piercing roar, letting her blood splash all over its body and painting it a gruesome red that shined off the flames. Liberty's lower half was flung away into the flames, left to burn away into ash. Crustacean-like claws suddenly twisted out of its chest, grabbing a hold of the mangled body and pulling it within it, with another body soon to join its inner hive mind. Varrock's malice reared its head back and roared its war cry into the smoke-shrouded air, announcing its bloodshed to all those around to hear it. No one shall be left alive. "Stay away from the trees!" Cyrus called to whatever soldiers still remained behind him. His life flashed before his eyes as he sprinted into the flaming forest. A barrage of heat cooking him under his armor was entered. All around him, plants and foliage burned brightly, the other trees having transformed into surging lights of raging flames. One by one, the trees began falling, crashing into the ground, and blasting in flames and leaves and twigs all over directions. The Malinois grimaced in an attempt to face it away as the flickering embers sprayed across him. Some of the soldiers behind quickly skidded to a halt, turning tail and fleeing out of the burning typhoon for their lives. Cyrus didn't blame them. A large part of them wanted to also escape the forest and let it burn away. But Varrock's malice had fled, and under no circumstances could the monster be able to inflict any more damage than it already had if it escaped the forest. It would attack the town and leave hundreds of bodies in its wake. It's to be stopped here and now. "Bella!" he called out, having to yell over the sound of weakened wood splitting apart. "Are you still with me?" The retriever's call sounded a few feet back. "Right behind you, Captain." She was struggling to keep up with him, but a courageous spirit kept her going. The spirit forest was unrecognizable. It truly seemed like every leaf and twig was ignited in burning agony. "We can't lose any more of the Paw Patrol," Bella cried, wincing as fiery debris shined across her face. "We need to get them out of here." They both stopped as they heard Varrock's malice's vicious war cry echo throughout the forest, a signal that had taken other victims. Cyrus hesitated for a moment, a brief flicker of fear rising within him that he quickly had to push away. "I'm pretty sure most of them are gone," the captain winced, flattening his ears in distress as thought overcame to him. "What about Everest? We couldn't find her body in the ski lounge." He looked back. "Yeah, but her owner was completely ripped apart. There were pieces of him everywhere." Grimacing at the memory, Cyrus remembered his team moving through the mountains and coming across the wrecked ski lounge. They had little to no information on what had occurred there, so pinning the attack on Varrock's malice was the only solution they could come up with. The owner of the ski lounge, a man named Jake, was found completely slaughtered. A small investigation of the area revealed that he owned a Siberian husky, plus a few other bodies littered around, and search began. although plenty of blood belonging to dogs had been found at the site. Everest's body was not uncovered. Then, have you ever heard of a dog abandoning its owner? He pointed out. If Everest wasn't there, but her blood was, the only answer was that she was consumed. Or she escaped. I don't think. He was cut off as a flaming tree dropped a mere inches from his body, forcing him to stop. A barrage of embers and splintered wood sprayed into the air as wildfire around them, only intensifying more and more. The heat was becoming unbearable. Soon it would just take them down in their burning branches. Jumping back, Bella howled as her tail hovered too close to an open flame, burning her and almost catching it alight. We're going to die in here! Hearing the pain of his sister in arms, Cyrus flattened his ears as he worriedly looked around in panic. Perhaps Varrock's malice was already dead, lying in a pile of burned flesh and dead tissue long ago. He didn't want it to abandon chase, but fearful cries of distant soldiers who followed him were becoming louder. The forest was soon to become a death trap. As he flicked his gaze toward the rifle attached to his side, he remembered his duty as soldier. They all died in the same way for what they believed in. Yet it was something else to be cast aside into a ring of fire, where survival was not in the cards. I won't leave them, the Malinois growled, itching to close to the book on the massacre. I'm going ahead. He stopped for a moment, and briefly turned back to Bella. If you want to turn back, you can. You have my permission. I won't hold it against you. He held her gaze as a moment of connection between them both. Go back, Bella. I'm going to die in here. You don't have to. Panting from the heat, his companion looked uncertain, shaking her head slightly at her leader's words, flicking her eyes around as it processed the situation. Her expression changed to a cold determination as she looked at him. Not a chance, Cyrus. Either we're escaping together or we die together. Sorrow hit Cyrus like a knife in the heart, only to be quickly replaced by the anger. Yet it was then immediately smoldered by a spark of gratitude. The captain wouldn't exactly say what he was feeling, so he only nodded in response, turning back to look at their trek through the fires. Wincing as they shoved through the wall of spiky brambles and dead flowers, they emerged into an opening clearing that provided a small safe haven from the fires, although the edges of the area were lined with flaming trees on the verge of collapsing. A cave was nearby, barely visible through the smoke. Cyrus skidded to a halt as he spotted a puppy wandering aimlessly along the field. Chase! He shouted. The police pup looked up and turned his head at the sound of his name, squinting his eyes at the pain he had fully left him from Liberty's attack. Cyrus! He shouted over the falling branches. She attacked me! Who? Liberty! He snarled, putting an arm over his eyes. She hit me with a fucking branch and then ran away. We need to catch... Swiftly jumping to him, Bella cut him off. Forget her. We need to get you to safety before this whole forest comes down on us. Forest? Chase shook his head, in wild confusion, his vision finally returning to normal. How did this even happen? We hit the creature with fire. Cyrus winced, realizing his mistake, only for it to turn around and run into here with the flaming tail. Now everything has gone to hell. He made a motion with his paw at Bella. Grab him. We'll carry him out of the... Look out! Bella suddenly jumped in surprise, locking her eyes on the upper tree line. Chase could already see it by the time Cyrus turned around, and all three of them drew back in terror. They all had gone into the lion's den, and now it was time for them to face the monster. Varrock's malice jumped along the branches of the trees and leapt into the clearing, landing on all fours on the ground. Its tail already danced in the smoky air, moving in a tandem with its tentacles. Get back! Cyrus called as the other two, as he gripped his rifle and blasted the creature. Empty shells littered the grass, and the snapping of the rifle mixed with the splitting wood. Chase panicked at the sound of the firearm and dove to the ground. Bella found herself frozen as she fought whether or not to help Cyrus or shield Chase. They were all overexposed. All Varrock's malice had to do was to charge into an open area, and they were doomed. Into the trees! Bella called, seeing it all too clearly. The trees? Chase looked up at her, repeatedly darting his gaze around frantically. We'll burn alive! We're sitting ducks out here. Where else can we go? Go! Run! Cyrus barked, flicking his tail to send them off, sweating pooling under his paws. He fought to keep the Varrock's malice at bay, while the other two ran for the burning trees. The creature was growing more pissed off by the minute, scampering into the ground to avoid the oncoming fire. Even though the bullets did little to actually kill it, they caused enough pain to render the excessive action. The fire alone brought great fear into the creature, but it was determined to finish what it started, no matter what pieces itself lost in the process. Backing up steadily, Cyrus's heart sank when the pop of his rifle went dry, leaving him nothing but empty clicks. The flying bullet shells stopped, leaving him empty and powerless. A fearful noise slipped from the malnoise as his ears flattened, as his eyes widening in terror, realizing he was vulnerable. Scraping his claws around the ground, Varrock's malice circled him as it growls and escaped from every orifice of its squirming body. The dead Labrador in its shoulder suddenly reared to life, like Zuma's own soul was dragged up and shoved back into him. The puppy opened its mouth, and a small screeching war cry emitted from it, while Varrock's malice hissed a small heave, almost a laugh, down its lower back. The mangled body of Liberty emerged as if it was hatching from an egg, firmly attached to the Varrock's malice's hip. The dachshund growled loudly as its tentacles slithered out of her mouth. The dogs were gone long ago, now infested and strung up inside the monster's heavily hive mind to be used like puppets. Glancing back at his companions had successfully fled, Cyrus turned back to the monstrosity. "You freak of nature!" Varrock's malice swiped its claw across the ground and roared, preparing it to leap. Thinking quickly, he snapped his paw into his vest and pulled out a grenade. It was one of the few pieces of firepower he had left. With his rifle completely drained, the only spare ammunition was the back of the helicopters. This was his last grenade, and the only one was ever a silver revolver clipped to his waist, but it was nowhere near as strong as an assault rifle. He grabbed the pin from his teeth and pulled it out, flinging it as much force made him dizzy. The small egg-shaped explosive sailed through the air and landed in the middle of the clearing. Having seen enough action to know what the blast radius, Cyrus quickly turned tail and fled for the raging wildfire fires. Varrock's malice screeched and lunged at him, flying right over the active grenade. The explosion blast was deafening, a screeching crack through the air that made him flinch in his step. He flew through the flaming brambles, burning his own fur down to the skin. Instantly he coughed out smoke as he entered the dense fires, eager to find his companions. With all the time he spent in fires and within explosions, Chase figured his body would grow more used to the scorching heat by now. He almost feared what felt like it could enter the cold of this coming winter, assuming that he survived the ordeal. Breathing heavily as he darted under the flaming trees, coughing out the thick smoke. "How did that even get this bad?" Bella came to a stop beside him, her fur matted and scraped. "It didn't look anything like the photos of the Archline sent." "It's mutated," snarled the shepherd. "Or got smarter. I don't know. That's the only problem with these stupid genetic labs. They think they have control, but they really don't. That's how disease outbreaks are made." Even with your professionalism, the soldier couldn't help but agree. You're right," she breathed. "If it helps, the captain has given the word. We've pulled out the job. This is getting solved here and now." She was interrupted as Cyrus broke through the trees, his explosive movement startling Chase and causing him to jump under a bush. I think I got it," he said frantically. I think Gah! Bella choked. A monstrous arm reached down from the tree branches, snatching her by the neck and pulling her off ground. She lost grip on her weapons, dropping them down below into a bed of flaming shrubbery. "Bella!" Chase looked under his breath and witnessed his savior get dragged up into the trees. Struggling as hard as she could, she fought for her life as Varrock's malice lifted her into view, staring down at her as it wrapped itself under the burning tree. "No!" Cyrus pulled his revolver and shot into the air. The bullet whizzed past Varrock's malice's neck, completely missing it. Although the shot tore through the tree, dislodging the massive cloud of embers and flaming leaves onto the creature, screeching as painful burns shot all over its back. Bella was dropped to the ground as Varrock's malice was jumped from the tree and landed on the forest floor. Thinking of no other solution, the Malnoise panicked. "Run!" But he was short-lived, as Varrock's malice swept its arm in a flash, catching Cyrus in the rage and knocking him away. The dog's body harshly hit the trunk of the tree, the impact dislodging another rain shower of embers and flames. Cyrus was out, his weakened frame now lying a few feet away. His gun was tossed out of his grip and fallen in the grass. He lay there, sprawled out in the grass, his attack sparking an outbreak for terror among the remaining two dogs. Frantic Bella tried to dive for Cyrus's dropped revolver. The creature heard her movements without even looking, prompting it to regurgitate a tentacle from its mouth and swinging it like a whip. It caught the dog's leg and it snarled her. The creature yanked its head backwards to fling its prey off balance. Bella shrieked as she left the ground and sailed through the air, slamming her against the tree. The impact of Bella hitting the tree caused by a chain reaction. The sudden face dislodging an avalanche of flaming branches and foliage, all collapsing into a massive bed of fire. Chase watched the whole thing, anger slowly overcoming him at the realization that he would once again watch one of his friends being brutally killed. No longer thinking straight, the shepherd charged out from his concealment and went for the monster. Jumping, teeth bared, he lunged into the creature, not exactly aiming for anywhere significant, just completely throwing himself at it. Snagging his teeth into the creature's leg, Varrock's malice whipped its head around in hostility, lashing its claws as it grabbed Chase by the torso and yanked him off. "Don't do that!" Liberty's voice hissed from beneath its flesh. Its ribcage began to split down the middle, cracking and wheezing as it slowly opened. Cracking each one of its ribs, the chest opened, revealing a pulsating chunk of body mass. It resembled a tumor, yet like a heart. With teeth lining the inner surface of the face of the ribs, dripping with crimson blood and gore, an eye opened a few inches from the heart. Then a second, then a third. Chase's anger died away as he stared into the bed of torments that Varrock's malice's insides. The creature was heartless, yet immutative far enough that it grew somewhat of an artificial heart. It needed an organ to power its new body, and a determination of such a bodily function would be a setback. It wouldn't die if its heart stopped functioning. However, Varrock's malice was far above from organic limitations. "Tearing apart is too good for you," Zuma's voice muttered from its shoulder, only to be replaced with rubble. "You're going to stay with me forever. We'll be one, and you will watch." It spat its last word. "As I rip apart and devour every last one of your city's inhabitants. Die well, dog." The inner eyes all fixed onto Chase at the same time. It was pulsating heart began to shriek and thrive in agony. Dozens of small tendrils started to grow from it, reaching forward toward Chase with barbed tips. Now frantic, the shepherd struggled as hard as he could to escape, but Varrock's malice refused to let him go. A vicious bark broke through the air as Cyrus sprang up, holding a flaming branch with its teeth. Varrock's malice flicked its ever many eyes over to him, disinterested, and more solely focused on the puppy in its claws. Its ignorance would soon be replaced with agony, as Cyrus jumped into the air and rammed the branch directly into its festering chest, splicing its heart with the blistering burn of fire. Screeching in pain from the attack, Varrock's malice recoiled and jumped backwards, coming out of the hair just close to falling into a recently created bed of fire. Gripping its chest in agony, the creature hunched over and started heaving. Even if it was slightly resistant, it still felt like pain just by another living being. "Chase!" Cyrus caught the puppy that he fell. "Can you breathe?" The police dog staggered over his own words, slightly disoriented. I think." His head fell back a little, and that was when Chase spotted the dropped revolver sitting on the grass. "Cyrus, your gun!" Now furious, Barack's mouth screeched over and turned its gaze back towards them, the pain in its chest mixing with its own rage. The monster bared its claws and sprang out for the two dogs in an instant. "Look out!" the captain cried, pushing Chase away at the last second. The puppy tumbled into the ash-covered grass just as the Malinois was tackled by the monster. Quickly he rolled onto his side, scrambling for the gun and jumping for it. His paws landed on the metal firearm, its slippy and humid from the heat. Feeling the weapon, immediately a wave of static entered Chase's head, but he ignored it. Gripping the firearm, he held it up with his paw and turned it around to his captain. "Cyrus, I have your—" He stopped cold. The Malinois was helplessly to physically fight off the might of the creature. In seconds he was restrained in the tendrils, and he was dragged up by the heart pulled with him. "Cyrus!" The soldier had his call, trying to fight the pain. "Chase, you need to— ah!" He screamed as the ribs closed on him, slowly impaling through the skin like they were eating him alive. Instantly the heart got inside to work, beginning to pull up and rip away Cyrus's skin, while the ribs held him in place. Varrock's malice mainly peered through this ordeal. Zuma's body began laughing uproariously, like a twisted flicker of life still remained it. Rubble and Liberty's voices could be heard, laughing in tandem. All celebrated the brutal execution. "Ah!" The soldier writhed in agony, as his body was slowly eaten into the heart of the mere moments from finally breaking it through the muscle layer. "Chase, you need to— The puppy frozen in terror. "What am I supposed to do?" "You need—" Within his pain, Cyrus knew what had to be done. The heart was its weak point, not vital, but weak enough. Although his body was still acting like a meat shield for it, his ribs holding him in place, knowing what needed to happen, Cyrus had to make the difficult choice. "You need to—" He gritted his teeth. "You need to shoot through me." "What?" Chase recoiled at the words. "Shoot through me! You have to!" Chase's heartbeat was frantic, his eyes widening. Now his ears drew back. Instantly, the sound of the world went silent, leaving him in a cold stasis of his thoughts. All he could hear and think was of the sky. He killed her. He pulled the trigger on the cockapoo without a word. The regret and anguish that followed nearly ate him alive, forcing him to slowly overcome with his mistakes to account his past. Just when he thought it was all over, here he was again, taking another innocent life. I can't!" the puppies cried. "I can't kill you!" "Do it!" Cyrus snarled angrily, desperately trying to hold out. The fires that burned around them only intensified, like the twisted audience eagerly waiting for bloodshed. Chase looked around frantically, briefing laying eyes upon Bella, lying motionless a couple feet away. She couldn't do it. It had to be him. Taking a deep and shaky breath, he held up the gun, aiming for Cyrus's chest. Paws shaking in fear, he found himself unable to pull the trigger. "Please, I don't want to do this." "You have to," Cyrus was pleading. Finish it!" "But The puppy struggled to form words. Varrock's malice's own laughter beginning to fill the air. Malicious at heart, it slowly held Cyrus suspended, not outright killing him without knowing the terror could instill the shepherd. It wanted to watch it fall, feel it drink the fear like a powerful drug, and it ever wanted every last drop. Fearfully holding the gun like a slippery animal trying to escape, the static in Chase's mind blooming into a thunderstorm of chaos, fighting to keep him down. His mind flickered with the memories and voices, images flashing while his claw, centimeters from the trigger. He saw nothing but sky. The memory of her murder repeat over and over, constantly forcing him to watch it again. In the twisted game of cruelty, his own mind replaced Sky with Marshall, then Rocky, making him witness himself murdering his own loved ones to tear his heart even more. Was he really a killer? "Chase!" Sky's voice echoed in his ears as she remembered her moving towards him. Snapping out of it at that last possible second, pulling the trigger, the gunshot pierced through the air, tearing through Cyrus's body. Gah! The soldier flinched as the coldness shot through him, exiting out of his back. Varrock's malice screeched the loudest it ever had. Its chest exploded outwards like a cloud of blood and organic biomass. Its ribs shattered out like falling in broken pieces to the ashy ground, along with Cyrus as it was dropped. Staggering backwards, the creature gripped its bleeding chest with both hands, trying to fight through the pain and how it searched through every bone and tentacle it had. It couldn't die from it, but the shock of it was paralyzing, clouding its vision and buckling its limbs, forced it all back to force. It no longer had the strength to stand up. It made a feeble effort to cover the wound with its tentacles. It tried to roar out something in a stolen voice, but none of the bodies were responding. The mental connections were frozen from the physical shock, as all that's left from its mouth was a defiant screech, as loud as it could by the final desperate attempt to ward off its attacks. Chase dropped the gun and ran for Cyrus, already tears in his eyes. Varrock's Malice panicked and turned to run into a random direction, only its leg to clip to a fallen tree, tripping the entire creature, seemingly slow motion. The monster fell forward and raging the beds of fire, helplessly to save itself. With the massive sound of splitting wood and raging fire, Varrock's Malice crashed directly into the flames. In an instant, it lit up like a burning star, its flimsy body almost flammable as a paper. It could avoid fire before its small amounts, knowing that death would bring, but Varrock's Malice had nowhere to run to. In time, it took it back to its feet, and its body was already gripping completely aflame. Zuma's corpse caught on fire, prompting it to flail its arms and hiss in rage. In mere seconds it went limp, the Labrador's carcass burning away to the skeleton underneath. Screaming in agony, using a mix of Rubble and Liberty's voices, it struggled to recalibrate its vision. It tried to use its tentacles to jump into the burnt trees, but they had already burned black and fallen off. Its tail included, it could already feel the fire burning into its organs, disintegrating its tendons and nerves, leaving them nothing but ash. As horrible pain flared through the monster, the fire is eating away of its body. It meekly reached an arm into the air, trying to grab a tree. The rest of its limbs seemingly gave up. It sprawled on the burning ground as the flames charred them to the bone, reaching for any last escape. Almost like if it was reaching for the heavens. The arm finally gave up, falling lifelessly into the fire. The rest of its body collapsed, Varrock's Malice strength, leaving it in flames to swallow it whole. The flames died down soon, revealing the blackened skeleton of the monstrous animal. All biomass was burnt away, with not an ounce of blood or hair remaining. Every tentacle and tendril were gone. The dozens of eyes that stared into the soul vanished, its claw lifeless and unmoving. Even with the living flesh gone, the bones remained in the flames, the heat making it short work of any possible molecule left in the parasite. Varrock's Malice was dead. For all the damage it could escape, all for the attacks it could withstand, Varrock's Malice simply could not survive a fire at such scale. The terror, the bloodshed, the massacres, it was all finally over. "Cyrus!" Chase cradled the soldier's head. He was significantly larger in size. "Speak to me, please!" The soldier gasped slightly, his eyes fading as the old limbs and tail went limp. "Cyrus!" he cried again. The puppy's voice cracked. "I'm so sorry." Tears flooded in his eyes. "I'm so sorry." The trees began to collapse around them, the forest finally losing its stability from the fire. "I'm sorry," he whimpered, holding the larger dog, fearfully looking around. He only saw the fires crashing down. For a moment he considered running away. It would probably save his life, but he had no idea where to go. The last time he was here, he used Varrock's Malice's roar to find its way back, and the last time there definitely wasn't a forest fire. He thought of Marshall and Rocky, his last remaining family. They were taking care of the ACG. No further harm would come to them. Sadly looking back down at the fallen soldier, he knew what he had to do. He hadn't want them to leave like this, but perhaps his family could remember him by his loyalty on a good note. Something overwrite the horrible memory of Sky's death. Dogs were loyal to their masters from the moment they were first held. to their final minutes of their lives. It was doctrine that they stuck to, proudly upholding the title of the man's best friend. But who was Chase's master? It wasn't Ryder, not after all this. And what was the dog without an owner? It wasn't Rocky or Marshall, and Chase refused to call himself an owner. It was practically taboo for a dog to do so. That left Cyrus. The captain had been there from the beginning. He tried time and time again to protect Chase from the horror that Varrock's malice would bring. The puppy didn't listen, and by knowing too much, the innocents died. Cyrus protected him as much as he could and saved his life from the creature's grip. He wasn't an owner or a master, but Chase couldn't deny that he saw his captain, his leader, more than Ryder ever was. Sighing softly, sorrow bleeding from his breath, Chase gently folded his limbs and nestled down on the grass, resting his chin on the soldier's arm. The sounds of splinting wood signaled the trees were falling. As the sky bolted out of the smoke, closing his eyes, Chase had accepted the end, knowing the deed was done. The horror and the static, the screams, it was all gone for good. While the flames fell, a helicopter zoomed overhead, coming to a stop as it hovered. Multiple dogs can be heard barking orders, but Chase didn't care to listen. Resting beside his leader, he gently smiled in contentment as the forest crashed on top of them.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.